So I would like to welcome you all, ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues, the ministers, my colleagues, the journalists, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to this press conference, which we dedicate to talk about the decisions and the measures taken by the Ministers' Council to support the transport sector. And this will be announced in details by Mr. Khaled Saif. And this, in fact, comes as the government supports the industries that were mostly damaged by the pandemic of COVID-19, and this comes as part of these efforts. 2 weeks ago, we started targeting the sectors that were mostly damaged by the pandemic, namely the tourism sector, and the package delivered to their assistance was at the value of 2 million JDs. And we also introduced concessions and tax exemptions for the municipality fees, along with the levies on lands and tax. And the value of that was more than 172 million dinars. The government is considering other methods to support the industries damaged by COVID-19. Indeed, the government, the Ministers' Council, the Advisory Council for Economic Policies, in cooperation with the civil society, sectoral entities, and the private sectors, are considering all of these proposals. In fact, the instructions of His Majesty the King were very clear to give attention and the needed assistance to the industry of agriculture and of manufacturing. We're considering methods of supporting them in order for them to contribute to the national economy. And we shall have meetings and further press conferences where we're going to talk about methods of supporting these two vital sectors and the government decisions and measures introduced to that. And before I give the floor to the Minister of Transport, I would like to address a couple of questions that we received in relation to the tax evasion measures. I would like to stress again that the inspection tours over enterprises conducted by the Income and Sales Tax Department are normal operations by the said department, and by no means mean that the enterprises targeted with the inspection is convicted. Rather, such decisions are exclusively taken by the judiciary. Till the date, 139 settlements out of 300 cases were made. These settlement requests were filed with the settlement committees, the tax evasion settlement committees. The inspection tours over the enterprises starting from the very beginning of this year are 510 inspection tours. Few of them were conducted with security escort compared to last year, the same period last year. The Income and Sales Tax Department conducted inspection tours, 1,320 inspection tours. Of course, the number decreased this year in number, but this year we focused on quality inspection tours. The amounts collected out of these inspection tours are 4 times the amounts collected out of the inspection tours conducted the same period last year. This is to say that these were effective tours. Of course, the government measures to combat tax evasions are not exceptional. They have been taking place since the issuance of the Income and Sales Tax Department, the amended law, which aggravated penalty over evasion and introduced an effective mechanism for follow-up. We'd like to stress that implementing tax evasion countering measures doesn't mean that we target individuals in particular, nor does it mean that we are impeding investment. It's about preserving the rule of law and serving justice. And this is where I give the floor to the Minister of Transport. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. In the name of God, most merciful, most compassionate, I would like to start with thanking you for being with us today, and I would like to seize this opportunity to express my thanks and appreciation for my colleagues, the workers in the transport industry, for everything they've been doing over this period and the solidarity they've exhibited. I would like also to thank the trade unions, regulatory commissions, chambers of commerce, chambers of industry who have been working in harmony in order to overcome this crisis. I would like to talk about the crisis and the experience we've been through. In fact, the transport sector is among the first to be damaged and will be among the last to recover. Studies indicate that demand over transport is going to drop because of many reasons, including social distancing, remote working, self-sufficiency in production. We hope, however, soon that things will get better. We are optimistic, and we're going to do our best as a sector in order to make it through this situation. As mentioned by the Prime Minister, no matter how much we provided for the transport sector, we're not going to compensate all of the loss it has incurred. However, we're going to mitigate the damage. This pandemic has introduced new, non-conventional, unprecedented, shocking challenges, not only on the national level. In fact, these challenges have impacted the whole international transport ecosystem. And after all, we are part of this ecosystem. And therefore, I would like to share with you the set of measures the government has adopted and introduced in order to mitigate the damage over this sector. Let me start with the first package, which is related to the direct support that is going to be delivered through the Land Transport Regulatory Commission, LTRC. We're going to deduct from the annual fees amounts that are proportionate to the business interruption of every mode of transportation. So business interruption has been the measure here. We have 15 modes of transportation of persons here, and every mode has been impacted differently. There are modes that have not yet started to work, and therefore their business interruption is the biggest. And in fact, their interruption may take longer, and therefore fees or amounts proportionate to this period of business interruption is going to be deducted from the annual fees due to the LTRC. As for those who paid these fees fully already, we're going to carry this forward to next year. We have the same methodology and the same measure in relation to working with this. It is the business interruption period. And we're going also to allow payment in installments for the fees due for 6 months till the end of the year. And we're going to give a grace period for licenses renewal with exemption for delay fines. And we're going to increase the operational life for 1 year for the most damaged transport mode. And what I'm going to say now is a part of the structural reform that we wish for the transport sector. In 2 weeks, in fact, we're going to come up with a new program in cooperation with the Social Security Corporation in order to cover workers in the sector with the umbrella of Social Security. In fact, during this pandemic, we've seen that the workers in this sector, including drivers and others, are entitled to have a social coverage for them and for their family, a safety net. And therefore, I would like to tell them that soon this is going to be achieved. At the end of the day, our purpose is to serve their interests. And so this is for the first package, which is related to the support delivered through the Land Transport Regulatory Commission, LTRC. And number 2, I'm going to talk about the support delivered to transport sector through a Social Security Corporation. In fact, we have worked with them closely. I thank them very much for everything they delivered. There are 3 programs delivered by the Social Security corporations that are very much related to the transport sector, namely company Shamaya Program. Shamaya Program, in fact, is a program where the Social Security Corporation pays part of the salaries of Jordanians, children of Jordanian women, and Gaza locals residing in Jordan. So the Social Security Corporation pays half of the salary, max 400 JDs, minimum 220 JDs, and these amounts are going to be paid for 7 months at an interest of 3%. The state treasury is going to shoulder the payment starts next year. The enterprise, however, pays a contribution of 20% to this salary. So this is in relation to Himaya program. Tamkeen Iqtisadi number 1, which is economic empowerment number 1. It is about reducing the elderly premium. So it is 13.5% rather than 21.75, and therefore workers who used to work to pay 7.5 are going to pay 4.25 now out of their salary, and employers who used to pay 14.25 are going to pay now 9.25. So it's going to go down to 13.5. This program, of course, ends by the end of this year. As for the second program, Tamkeen 2, the worker in the transport sector who are covered with the Social Security, they can take a loan for one time at a value of 200 JDs. So this is what has been delivered for the support of the sector in cooperation with the Social Security Corporation. The third is the support delivered to the transport sector through the central bank programs. This might not be clear for many who are in the sector, but allow me to explain it very quickly. There are two programs delivered by the central bank. It is one that targets big companies and another that targets small and medium enterprises. For big companies, the ceiling of the max of the debt is 4 million. The payment period is 10 years. 2 years can be grace period, and the interest rate being at 4%. I'd like to share these numbers with you. Part of these programs now, the companies that benefited from this, whether in air and air freight or road freight, got 19, and they got 18 million JDs. As this for the second program, it is for the SMEs, which is the 500 million portfolio. You all know of this. So in this program, the max, the ceiling of the debt, the loan is 1 million, 42 months to for paying off, and 2 months, and the interest rate is 2%, 2% that will be covered by the government if the loan is paid for employees' salaries. And therefore, I would like to share these figures with you. In fact, as for the air freight, road freight, and maritime freight, 47 companies benefited from this program. The value of what they got is 9,931,300 JDs. So these two programs are still available for those who are eligible, and the credit guarantee is at 85%. The other theme is the support given or provided in cooperation with the Ministry of Tourism, who I thank them very much for their collaboration. We, as institutions, are all working hand in hand in order to support our industries. So the Ministry of Tourism, through their package, introduced support, for example, for the 3 national aviation companies, as they provided support associated with internal flight, domestic flights, Amman and Aqaba, and the subsidy was associated with reducing the cost of these air tickets, so it is at lower than 40 JDs. This comes as part of the package under the title of Urdunna Jannah. Also, the support of the touristic transport companies, including travel agencies, and we're going also to add car rental companies and hotel taxis, which also are related to tourism. So these companies that are under the program, that are part of the program of Urdunna Jannah, will provide free transportation. That is, if somebody has a booking in a hotel under the program of Urdunna Jannah, the transportation is going to be for free. This is in order to create demand. So this creates demands for those who wish to use public transportation. It is indirect support that reflects on the cost the passenger pays, and that creates demand. The thing that helps, of course, this is associated with the work delivered, and also there is the support for touristic transportation companies and also travel agencies, as you remember in Urdunna Jannah, so to provide a free touristic transportation to all destinations of this program. And there will be a bank facilitation at the value of 150 million to support companies in the form of soft loans in order to cover salaries and operational costs. And these are also guaranteed at the value of 85% by the national company, Jordanian company, for credit compensation and for credit guarantee, and the state treasury shall shoulder the interest rate if this was to cover the salaries of employees, and that includes travel agencies. The other point is about allowing the payment and installment for the amounts due to the tax department within a clear time frame and with exemption from delay payments, delay fees. And penalties. And as for the social development ministry, we have the National Aid Fund. I'd like to thank the Ministry of Social Development. This program, in fact, it's called Takaful 2, Solidarity 2. It targets anybody who bears and uses their driving license for public transportation, 136 JDs were given for families in May, June, and will be paid in July. So the monthly value is going to be 1,300,000, and in 3 months is going to be 9,450,000 JDs, because we have treated these 127,000 drivers just like we as the daily wagers. And I would like also to express my thanks and appreciation to the Prime Minister, who supported the transport sector, and all the institutions and the ministries who've been working hard with us. And we're going to continue working hard with them, because the crisis has not finished yet. We thank the crisis cell, Aziza, GAM, and we mostly thank His Majesty King Abdullah II. May God bless him for his close follow-up for all the measures that are being introduced during this crisis. And we'd like to thank the Transportation Commission, Transport Regulatory Commissions. And I would like to tell you that the passenger capacity is going to be increased. His Excellency, the Minister of Health, has been cooperative with us. It's increased up to 75% rather than 50%. And this is a very good thing, in fact. And it is essential, and we've always called for this. I just would like to remind you that with the drop in oil prices, which we've seen recently, the LTRC did not increase the tariff. The timing was not appropriate, so this is one form of support. It is very essential for us to create demand on public transportation, and therefore we avoid adding tariffs, and therefore we avoid adding more transportation cars and vehicles in order to strike balance between demand and supply, and we maintained the percentage of the ratio of 70-30 in order to allow transport of goods, and we have set a max loading capacity proportionate to cargo freight. All of these sacrifices have been exerted by everybody. We've seen a hard situation at border crossing points, and in the sector, everybody works hard, and I'm proud that I represent this sector. But in fact, we've seen good patriotism at this sector. We've seen, despite the very hard situation, we've seen very effective logistical movement, air freight, road freight, delivery of goods, and this is not the achievement of the achievement of the Ministry of Transport. It is that of the workers in this sector, our stakeholders, our partners, ASIZA, GAM, and everybody. I would like to thank you again, and thank you very much. Thank you. Let's give the floor to His Excellency, the Minister of Health. Thank you very much. In the name of God, most merciful, most compassionate, today we had 5 cases, 5 persons who tested positive for COVID-19. The thing that makes the total number of cases since the beginning of the pandemic 1,047 cases. The 5 cases are for people coming from abroad, Jordanians residing at the quarantine hotels. 3 are from KSA, 1 from Egypt, and 1 from Qatar. There have been 21 recoveries in the kingdom from Prince Hamza Hospital to make the total number of recoveries 772 cases, and there are 141 patients under treatment. 103 of them are at Prince Hamza Hospital, and 33 are at the quarantine area at the Dead Sea. And today, 5,028 tests were conducted to make the total number of tests conducted since the beginning 341,161 tests, which is 10 times the recommendations of WHO. I would like to say that given the situation of industries reopening, the staff of the Ministry of Health and our partners from the Royal Medical Services and hospitals, universities, and the private sectors all are increasing their efforts, working day and night. We're working with all institutions, relevant institutions, to prepare Jordan for the coming stage. Our main goal is to protect Jordan from inside, which is a very strong, important point of strength for us. We've seen in the world where medical systems collapse. Of course, if the medical system and the sector collapses in a country, the economy will collapse immediately. We've seen the institutions in the state, government, security departments, citizens, and with the leadership of His Majesty the King, all of these efforts maintain and preserve our medical sector, and our economy has started to revive while other economies in the region are still suffering. Indeed, this is a major achievement that we need to preserve and maintain, and that of course requires further efforts from the side of medical staff. I thank them very much. I thank the Prime Minister, the Ministers' Council, and everybody who stands by us. This participatory approach has been a key to this success, and you've all seen that we have restored and resumed our life. We're back to our mosques, our churches, our businesses have started, our businesses have resumed, and this is the thing that we need to maintain and preserve. I would like to reiterate, the pandemic is still there, and you all see what's happening around us in the region and in the world. And the warnings of the WHO indicate that in 1 week, what the cases that have been registered are proportionate to what has been registered in the first 3 months. The pandemic is still there. Deaths are on the rise. The death toll is on the rise in so many countries. We do not want by any means to be in a situation that puts us through this suffering, we again stress the importance of complying with preventive and safety measures, social, physical distancing, wearing masks, washing hands, using sanitizers, and all of the other preventive measures. Indeed, some industries are still suffering, but as we have seen, it's the fourth day without cases on the local level, and we are very close to the green alert code. We have to fight in order to get there. The role of media is very important here in order to remind people again and again the threat is still there. And we're in a situation that warrants being very keen on maintaining and improving it. We're always looking ahead, and we're going to order the vaccine for seasonal flu. It helps the immunity system in the body. It protects it protects from H1N1. It's going to be soon in a couple of months from now. It's an endemic now, so it is recurrent, and this vaccine helps the immunity system to fight COVID-19 because it motivates the immunity system. And we also asked for 1 million dosages of the vaccine of this COVID-19 if it proves to be effective. And we are in contact through official channels in order to have that registered. Jordan's right and Jordan's share from this vaccine, prospective vaccine, should it be produced. Again, I would like to say you have only one question to answer, to raise, and if you raise more than one, we will only answer the first. We've received questions through the emails. The first is addressed to His Excellency from Xinhua, the Chinese news agency. It's addressed to the Minister of Health. China is developing a vaccine. It's at the second stage now. Is there any information sharing between Jordan and China in relation to the development of this vaccine? If China has succeeded in developing this vaccine, is Jordan going to get it in cooperation with China if the vaccine turns to be effective and successful? A question by Amoon Agency and Al Wakil Agency, news agency, about the feasibility of continuing to impose curfew at 12 a.m. and if there are any intentions to reverse this decision. In relation to cooperation with China, in fact, we have close cooperation with them since the beginning of this pandemic. We've had reciprocal relation. In fact, we have imported many items from China, and through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we receive reports from China as to the developments, be it on the scientific level or the developments in relation to the epidemiology. We have good relation with the Embassy of China, and we have good level of information sharing. Yes, if the vaccine turns to be effective, we're going to seek to get it. And anything that is in the interest of the Jordanian citizen is going to be the thing that we look for. And we will look for this vaccine regardless of what the source is. And we know that we know about the situation and the process of vaccine development. We have a team that follows up on the daily developments in relation to vaccine developments throughout the world, and we contact any entity that is working on this. And as for the second question, now we are in the blue alert code, and if 10 days pass without local cases, we will move to the green alert code, which means that a curfew after 12 a.m. Okay, let me tell you, the curfew was imposed in order to reduce the random contacting that happens at night, and also in order to have a certain pattern that will reduce any shock that could happen if patterns change. And yes, we hope that if results are good, like the 4 days that have passed, eventually we'll get and we'll hit the green alert code and there will be no curfew then. Okay, make your questions please about the topic and we'll take 2 rounds of question. Hi, my name is Muhammad Faiz from Al Mamlaka channel. We're talking about airport. When do you expect that airports are going to open? And we're talking about opening the country for medical tourism. When is this going to start? And when are we going to receive tourists for medical tourism? Thank you for your question. As for the issue of opening airports, this is also related to the epidemiological situation in the other countries rather than only in Jordan. And therefore, at this stage, we do not have any specific date as to when we are going to open our airports and when we're going to operate aviation. Now, we, as a ministerial team, as an specialized team, we're working on medical tourism. However, this is not going to be random. There will be classification for countries that we're working on as per criteria to be particularly decided by the Ministry of Health. Countries are going to be classified based on different variables, including the epidemiological situations there. And then we'll start with the medical tourism, and this is a learning curve for us. We will see how the epidemiological situation evolves internally and externally, and then we start thinking and considering opening airports to receive tourists in general. Thank you. Faisal Tamimi from Al-Maqar News Agency. So we're talking about air freight. Does the government have a plan to support air freight, especially that the beneficiaries of these facilitations are from the land transport? Usama Bader, I have a couple of questions. However, I will ask one only. In the first period where the cases registered were 1 million, maybe more on the international level. There have been more than 1 million cases. Countries were closed down and shut down, industries were shut down, and airports also. Recently, we've seen similar and proportionate number of cases registered. However, rather than shutting down industries are reopening. Does this mean that in the beginning, it was only a propaganda, things were exaggerated and were blown out of proportion? Muhammad Abu Arqoub from Ru'ya TV, I'm asking about the individual owners, I mean individual operators and workers, because they're more like daily wagers. And what about the drivers of vehicles that that work between Jordan and neighboring countries? I'm from Al Ghad newspaper. As for the elections in professional associations, do you think that there will be a possibility for professional association elections to be conducted in addition to the elections, the parliamentary elections, which are due but not scheduled yet? Thank you very much for these important questions. I'm going to answer them. About individuals and as for social security, like we said, the structural support that we wish to have is in 2 weeks. We're going to work with the Social Security Corporation in order to cover individuals working in the transport sector in order to provide a social coverage for them, social security coverage. In fact, these are the main beneficiaries of this program. So as for the question how to compensate those who work on international transport between Jordan and neighboring countries, of course, they were the ones who were damaged most. They're going to get the highest rate of reduction of fees or deduction of fees if their business was interrupted for 80% for the whole year. 80% of the fees are going to be deduced, and the rest are going to be paid in installments. Along with the director of the Land Transport Regulatory Commission, we're considering the possibility of merging some modes together. But we want to make sure that we don't fix it in one place, but damage it in others. So our criterion is the service of for the passengers. And we need to understand that there is a drop in the demand. When there is a drop in the demand and the increase in the supply, we cannot tell one mode to be merged with the other. Yes, we wish to do so, but we do not want to have it done randomly. And now there is a study, and I am honest, there is a study being conducted in order to consider merging them very, very carefully without jeopardizing and prejudicing the existing modes. As for the question in relation to support for the aviation, a very important question indeed. And you know that aviation and air freight is something very heavy, is a heavy industry. The damage it incurred is very significant. So today we're talking about 3 social security programs that have direct impact on them in reducing the contribution, in relation to reducing the contributions of companies in the social security premiums. Also the 3 programs we talked about, and one company in fact took a loan, and they are allowed and eligible for loans in order to help them pay their salaries and their operational costs. And also the tourism package. Tourism package is an excellent package because it touched upon all modes of touristic transport. Yes, the 150 million and the tax that is going to be paid off in installments. This is also possible for this sector, aviation. And some companies have maintenance centers at airports. We facilitated things to the extent possible, and we took into consideration the health protocols, which have been protective for us, in fact, and that allowed them to continue to work. And we have and we still have discussions in this regard in order for us to find new methods and new ways to support this sector. As for the first question, if there has been exaggeration or if the pandemic was exaggerated in the media, it's in its onset. 3 months ago, the world did not know and had not known about this pandemic. In 90% of the cases, it's a mild flu, but in 10%, it's acute. And the fact is, and the problem is that it's quick to infect and quick to spread. This 10% might be at huge numbers that go beyond the capacity of hospitals over this period. We and the world learned a lot about this pandemic. The whole world changed. We changed our traditions, handshaking, all of these social traditions, weddings, and even border post procedures. Nobody knew about the details of what's going to come. Major industries and major economies didn't have masks in the beginning of this pandemic, but now we have learned a lot. As medical institutions and as peoples, we have learned how to deal with this pandemic, how to protect ourselves from it. So the countries which have implemented preventive measures early in the beginning, they have started to control the situation, the epidemiological situation, while in countries which did not, the epidemiological situation is only worsening and the death toll is only increasing. So we have started to coexist with the pandemic. Yes, we still have some sort of lockdown. Airports are closed in the whole world. The majority of airports are closed down. So it's not complete absolute freedom. all countries of the world are setting measures as to how to coexist with this pandemic. Say we haven't found a vaccine in 10 years from now. We cannot continue to have absolute lockdown all the time. We need to find ways to coexist with this pandemic, to live with it, so we maintain our economy, at the same time safeguard the health of citizens. I don't think that this was a propaganda. Indeed, the media outlets still gives lots of time and attention and coverage to this pandemic. But what happened is that the world has started to coexist. Even some wars, in fact, ceased because of the lockdowns. Now that the industries and the world is reopening, they have resumed. In short, the world wants to live, wants to survive, and coexist. As for the other questions, and a question in relation to elections at professional association, according to the epidemiology, the National Epidemiology Committee, they recommended that elections are not allowed, and that is according to the matrix. At this alert code, it's very dangerous. We need to preserve the achievement we've made so far. Gatherings is something very dangerous, very risky. I don't want to tell you about gatherings in some countries that have created hotspots and clusters for infections. We hope that when we are at the green alert code, it will be reconsidered by the National Epidemiology Committee. So in general, gatherings for persons more than 20 is not allowed, including for elections. Dial from Akhbar al-Iraq. I would like to congratulate you for this very wise leadership, which has given every evidence that they are in service of their company. Saad Jaber, everybody knows about you, even in Iraq, even in Ahwar. We have Iraqi families in Jordan. Their children are in Egypt. They want to get them back. They are official, legitimate, legal residents in Jordan, and their children study in Egypt, for example. They wish to have them join them in Jordan. There are around 20 persons. Arif Daboubi from Jordan radio station. My question is addressed to Mr. Adaile. As for Jordanians abroad and who wish to spend their summer holiday in Jordan, is there any arrangement for that? Niveen Abdul Hadi from Adasun newspaper. Dr. Saad, you talked about the next stage where we need to be more vigilant, and there are many scenarios that are suggested having an electronic bracelet in order to reduce the time of quarantine, the possibility of reopening schools. Do you have an idea about what's going to come according to the developments in the epidemiological situation? Abdel Hakim Al-Garale from Al-Ra'i newspaper, we talked about the measures to support the agriculture sector. What's new about this, especially that the agriculture sector contributed significantly during the pandemic and has been the guarantee and the safeguard for our food security. It helps, of course, they suffered from so many challenges. The farmers are demanding that they are given grace period from the loans they have taken from banks and from the agricultural loan institution. Al-Hassan from Al-Sawsana News Agency, the Prime Minister said that the paper-based newspaper issue is going to be addressed radically. Could you tell us how this radical situation is going to manifest itself? So let's start with the question by Mr. Dia. you know that when we started considering repatriating Jordanians, especially those who were stranded abroad or our students, this group was our focus and still is. Our main concern is to repatriate Jordanians who are stranded abroad, and of course the residents whose families have been stranded, especially those who bear provisional passports and the children of Jordanian women. All of these are matters being considered, but once we're done with repatriating our Jordanian citizens, students and stranded abroad, we're going to consider repatriating or allowing the Arab residents in Jordan to come back. To come back to Jordan. As for Jordanian expatriates wishing to spend their summer holiday in Jordan, the advice is as follows: if the expatriate is going to come, say in quarantine for 15 days, and then this means that they are going to spend their holiday in quarantine. This is why we said we only want to receive Jordanians who were stranded abroad, because if they spend too much time here for more than 1 month, especially that they're going to spend most of the time in quarantine and aviation is not working as it used to be, this might cause them to lose their jobs. So what is best for them is to keep their jobs, stay there, rather than coming to spend their holidays in this situation, which is not stable yet. As for the agricultural sector, you know that His Majesty conducted several tours and has chaired several meetings related to agriculture, in particular because His Majesty realizes that the food security of Jordan is a priority, and we need to do everything possible in order to support this vital, essential sector. And over the past weeks, His Majesty mentioned explicitly that we need to support this sector, and upon the instructions of His Majesty the King, the Prime Minister, along with line ministers, especially the Minister of Agriculture, met together in order to define the mechanisms to support this sector. Things are being considered now. By next week or the week after, we're going to introduce an integrated package to support this sector, which we will announce once it is ready. Now, as for your question, indeed, during this crisis, which started very clearly in March, we needed to be innovative and creative in dealing and addressing some shortages, in addressing some weaknesses during the pandemic. We worked day and night, doing and undoing, building and constructing and deconstructing. There were no masks in the world. We started manufacturing, and now we have 15 types of Jordanian made masks, and now we have face shields. We have innovated IT apps to trace people and trace contacts. Indeed, the economic reopening, which started in April, it was a step that was very well considered in order not to compromise the achievement made till then. The e-bracelet is something that we have been considering. We have given a group of people who were released from the quarantine this e-bracelet, and we're following up on them, and the administrative governors are following up with us. We cannot give, this is a pilot group, we cannot give it to 5,000 people, but we're working on a pilot group. We are on daily contact, with the crisis cell and with Mazenbek in order to find out how effective they are. In 5 days, we will have a clear picture about it. In fact, this will reflect on reducing the period of quarantine and therefore the number of Jordanians repatriated. The more we shift people from the quarantine sites, the more we can accommodate. Of course, we really want to maintain the epidemiological situation stability. The more we reopen, the more risk there is, and therefore we need to be very cautious. We're using all technology possible, and there's collaboration between all entities, Ministry of Interior, Crisis Cell, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Media. So all of these, the Ministry of Tourism, we're going to use them. So we are working together as a team, but every step is taken after lots of consideration and studies, and we're always concerned that this might jeopardize our epidemiological situation. As for the paper-based newspaper, this is a crisis that has been there before COVID-19 crisis. As for the survival of a paper-based newspaper, everybody agrees that they need to survive, they need to continue to be there, and we need to support workers therein and the media content as well. The things, the matter is of three themes: journalists themselves, the administration of these newspapers, and the social security. Since the beginning, since I've taken office, we've been considering and discussing the paper-based newspapers, Prime Minister, the journalists, and Social Security Corporation. The will is there to solve this problem. How? We're going to work with the Social Security Corporation and with newspapers management. We're going to develop a plan. We hope it's going to be successful. We need, however, to bear in mind that restructuring and reforming these newspapers is very essential. This comes parallel with what the government and the Social Security Corporation plan to do in order to help these newspapers. We very much appreciate the role of these newspapers over the past decades, and they are going to play in the future, and they are main players in the making of the history of this country and in supporting our efforts, be it economic or political, or even the efforts that we're exerting right now in order to fight the pandemic and deal with its repercussions. Thank you very much, the journalists, the colleagues, the ministers, and until we meet again, thank you very much.